Thank you. And if there are some questions I notice, I will elaborate on that and a couple of other matters. I do want to get to one issue going to the PelAir inquiry. Mr. Dolan, you will recall from this committee's inquiry into the PelAir ditching or the references committee inquiry, the discussions we had regarding CAS's special audit of PelAir and the impact or otherwise this audit had on the ATSB's investigation and report.
Yes, Senator.
It was your position during that inquiry that the special audit was not relevant to the ATSB's investigation. Is that a fair summary of your position?
That it didn't change the conclusions we arrived at in the course of the investigation would be a fair reflection, I think, Senator. But it didn't change the outcome of the investigation.
Right. So in the Hansard on the 15th of February 2013, there was an exchange where I asked you questions about you're aware that CAS had conducted a special audit, but you did not think it was relevant to your investigations to get a copy of that special audit into PelAir. You said we were happy that our investigations were covering the territory we needed to cover in understanding the facts, and then I think there might have been some raucous in the room. I said, sorry, could you say that again? I could not hear you. You said we were happy that our investigation was covering the relevant territory on analysing the special audit report, and I believe we supplied a table reflecting this to the committee. We satisfied ourselves that the major lines of inquiry that had been undertaken through the special audit were ones that we had also turned our minds to. Is that a fair summary? That's still your position. There were similar statements from you on from the hearings on the 21st of November 2012 and 22nd of October 2012, or in that 22nd of October and 21st November 2012. However, the report from the Canadian TSB, the Transport Safety Bureau of Canada, that looked at this states on pages 18 and 19, and I'll quote, so it's not out of context. In reviewing the report, the commissioners expressed concern that there was insufficient factual information and analysis in the report to support the revised findings on the company's oversight of its operations. Now, I presume there the commissioners is referring to the ATSB. That's my understanding.
I'm sorry, could you go through that again, Senator? I don't have the text in front of me.
The Canadian TSB report refers to the commissioners. Yes. I presume that is the commissioners of
the commissioners of the ATSB.
That's right. So
yes.
It goes on to say, the Commission also wondered why the CASA special audit of PelAir had not been relied upon more extensively to support the findings. These comments by the Commission did not result in changes to the report. Ultimately, the finding related to PelAir's oversight of its operations was removed from the report, and on 17th of August 2012 the report was approved for public release. Further, on page 30 of the Canadian TSB report, it states, when the Commission reviewed the report in June and July 2012, the Commissioners expressed concern that there was insufficient factual information and analysis in the report to support a finding relevant to oversight of aeromedical operations by PelAir. The Commission was also concerned that the CASA special audit of PelAir was not relied upon more extensively. So, Mr. Dolan, what I'm trying to understand is this. Do you consider there are inconsistencies in these statements in respect of what the Canadian TSB stated in terms of what appears to be relying on what the ATSB told it and evidence previously to the committee? I'm just trying to understand that genuinely as to whether there is a contradiction between the two.
No,
on the face of it, there does appear to be.
I understand the point of your question, Senator, and I think you'll find that the key to that is in fact the table we supplied to the inquiry, which is the result of the query of the commissioners. What is the work that took the special audit, and how does that relate to the matters that we raised in our report? So that table that we supplied to the committee was the answer to the Commission's question. What is the relevance of the special audit to this investigation? So that's the missing bit that's not picked up in...
But you can understand it's not unreasonable to conclude that there appears on the surface to be an inconsistency, but you're saying that it's dealt with the table.
Yes, sir.
And that table, just remind me, gave an analysis of what was relied.
That went through the various findings of the special audit and matched them against, I'm relying on my memory here, Senator, matched them against the matters in the report, and it was really lining up to say these matters were considered in the development of the report. Right. I'm not sure whether Mr Sangston has any further memory.
Ian Sangston, General Manager, Aviation Safety Investigation Centre. That's the case. It was a comparative...
Right. And can I invite you genuinely, if you could if you feel that there's something that you want to take on notice in respect to that and elaborate on that, that might be, I'd be happy for you to do so, because I guess the further question is that whether Mr Dolan, you and other commissioners were concerned about the lack of reliance on the special audit, despite what appeared to have been told by the committee, or do you and the commissioners still not see the special audit as relevant, despite what on the surface appears to have been told to the Canadian TSB?
To separate that question, Senator,
Sure.
Point in time where we approved a final report was after we considered that table that matched the work that had been done with the banding.
Sorry, can you say it again? The final report?
So the final report, as it then was, that was being discussed in the Senate inquiry, at that point in time, we had been satisfied that the matters raised in the special audit were adequately addressed. We no longer are of that view, and we expect that the reopened investigation will revisit the question of the special audit.
So you're no longer of that view in relation to the weight of the special audit?
That's something that we expect will be revisited in the course of the reopened investigation,
Right.
Senator.
So in other words, will the special audit and the Chamber's report be considered in the new investigation into the PelAir ditching?
Yes, Senator.
Right. And this is something that concerns me, and maybe the Chair can assist me on this. It is my last question, Chair, you'd be pleased to know. I'm trying to, stick to time here. Will any of the same staff from the previous investigation being involved in the new investigation?
No, Senator, with one small exception. Dr Walker, who is the investigator in charge, had a small involvement in overseeing some, or reviewing some work that was done in relation specifically to fatigue in the original report. But that's the only connection of anyone who's involved in the team.
Well, it's still part of the same organisation. There's that whole issue of being part of the same institution. The Canadian TSB basically suggested that there ought to be a new report done, or a new investigation carried out.
I don't think the Canadians formed a view on that, Senator. They drew attention to areas where they considered that we had not adequately applied our own methodologies and processes.
They basically said, to be fair, the Canadian TSB said you've got, the ATSB has got good methodology, good processes, but they weren't fully carried out in respect of the PelAir ditching.
That's correct,
That's,
Senator, and
I think,
that's the basis on which...
neutral way of putting it.
And that's the basis on which the Commission determined to reopen the investigation.
Sure. So how can you assure this committee, and indeed all those involved in the PelAir ditching, that there will be no bias on the part of the ATSB, that it will be a de novo, a fresh look at what was a very serious incident?
There are three things, Senator, with that minor exception that I referred to. Those that are involved in this round of the investigation were not involved in the original course, in the reopened investigation, were not involved in the original investigation. Secondly, the point that the Canadians most particularly made was that although our methodologies are sound, they were not adequately applied or supervised in this case, and we have a new oversight of this arrangement.
So who will oversee that?
Mr Walsh will be overseeing the work of the investigator in charge in this case.
And Mr Walsh wasn't involved in the PelAir
No, he
case
was
at all?
not. He was involved in giving evidence to the committee about the broader shape of the ATSB's policies, procedures and so on, because that's part of his territory. Dr Mike Walker, who is the investigator in charge, is a highly regarded and world expert on matters of organisational factors in safety investigations and human factors, and is in large part responsible for the methodologies and the analysis arrangements that the ATSB has in place that the TSB was quite satisfied with. And we have the clear indication from our colleagues in the Transportation Safety Board, from the point of view of the Commission, as to those areas where there was insufficient review, governance and appropriate control of the original investigation. So we feel that there's a capacity there to run a perfectly good investigation, which of course will be judged by the quality of the final report.
So you don't think there's a risk of a perception of Caesar judging Caesar in respect to this?
I think there's a possibility of that perception, Senator. The other point I would make is that the only power to reopen an investigation of a safety matter of this kind is under the TSI Act and must be with the ATSB.
Right, so there is no capacity to outsource it to another similar body. In other words, could you ask the Canadian TSB to do the investigation de novo?
No, Senator.
Right, you have there's no capacity in the legislation.
As I understand it, Senator, no capacity, and the requirement is in the end that the Commission of the ATSB consider the final report and publish it.
And in terms of procedural fairness, you will be re-interviewing the pilots involved and the like?
We'll be re-interviewing all parties involved.
Yes, including PelAir?
Including PelAir and including CASA.
Right.
As necessary. We will be, and we have already put in a request for additional information from both PelAir and from CASA. And we will have our normal directly involved party processes where a draft of the report will be provided for comment to all involved parties.
What time frame are you looking at for this exercise?
Our objective and the target for completion and publication of a final report of this reopened investigation is before Christmas, Senator.
Right.
So does that mean, Mr Dolan, that this committee, we mightn't have been far off the mark?
You might be preempting things.
The committee made recommendations that we should reopen the investigation and that we should retrieve the flight data recorders. We have agreed to reopen the investigation and we will also proceed to retrieve the flight data recorders.
Could I just